Morality comes from religion. If you are not religious, then you are not moral. These 2 points are not merely absurd, but are simple-minded and ignorant. You can, if you like, insert any dogma. Morality comes from Christianity, or morality comes from philosophic principles. But the absurdity remains. Why absurd? I will endeavor to explain why in this blog. What is morality? Where does it come from? What does it mean to be moral? Morality as such is a way of looking at the world in terms of claims, which emerges out of social relationships. This and nothing more is what morality is and where morality comes from. If you prefer, you can refer to social relationships as simply some other. From your inner self, your consciousness, your family, friends, strangers, even to God, animals, and perhaps even nature itself can constitute this other. Everything in the world has some moral value. The value stems primarily from possession. Whether you want to talk about some material object like your car or your cup of coffee sitting in front of you, or some immaterial and abstract right. The moral world is one in which we say, "This is mine," and you must both respect and recognize it. This is what I mean when I say morality is a way of looking at the world in terms of claims. Duty and obligation are both expressions of recognizing and respecting the claims that others make on you and you on others. The third question, what does it mean to be moral, is the toughest one. So let us rephrase it for the moment and ask instead, how do we come to be moral? To answer this question, we have to employ our imagination, which is where the idea of morality is found. Imagine that your mind is a vast data archive that is filled with streaming video, still shots, and other footage captured by your senses but primarily through your eyes. Take a moment to look around you. What do you see? How do you see it? As you swivel your eyes, your camera, to scan around the room, you record everything. This footage, as it is scanned, is processed in your mind as you conjoin the present with the past. The footage you have taken of the room, a synthesis of objects and empty space, is compared and contrasted to prior footage, and you would know, as these images are conjoined, whether anything is out of place. It is not unlike the puzzles you sometimes find in the newspapers, which challenge you to find what's different between the two images. In the same way, we come to be moral. Whenever we are presented with some moral dilemma or choice, it is always made against the backdrop of a moral narrative within your mind. When you wonder, what is the right thing to do, you cast your mind's eye back in time to see if this present situation, this present image, is buried within that archive, and you make your choices based upon how everything fits together in your moral narrative. You might imagine yourself much younger being confronted with a similar situation, or you might imagine some story told to you which expressed what the right thing to do would be in such a case. We ask questions like, what did grandmother do? What did Jesus do? What did Abraham do? What did I do? What did Hamlet do? What did Little Red Riding Hood do? Whatever question we ask in that regard, it is always drawn from a wealth of direct and indirect experiences, directly from your own interactions with the world, and indirectly through experiencing the world through the stories of others. The best medium almost always entails direct experiences, because direct experiences contain meaningful features not found within the stories of others. When someone tells you a story, you imagine it happening in your mind's eye, but this footage is only an indistinct impression. It is not the real thing. You don't feel what they felt or hear what they heard. In short, your experience of the story is only virtual. When you look at the Mona Lisa, you can appreciate the talent and genius of the work. but what you can't do is experience what Da Vinci felt when he was painting it. You don't know how it made him feel. Moral stories from others are, as such, useful for helping us decide the best course of action in answering what is the right thing to do. But it's not until we experience it for ourselves that it becomes personal. That is to say, it becomes part of our own moral narrative. And now we can say something about the absurdity I alluded to at the start. Who we are morally is what we do morally. Being learned on some religious doctrine or some philosophic school of principles, as it regards morality, is useless without moral action. That is to say, knowing what Jesus did or knowing what Socrates did is useless unless you act as Jesus acted or you act as Socrates acted. Because simply knowing their moral stories doesn't make you a moral being. This point bears repeating. Knowing the moral stories of others doesn't make you a moral being. It is our own direct experiences and our own actions which define who we are as moral beings. These experiences are drawn not from any book or collection of books, are not drawn from any story or collection of stories. They are drawn from your interaction with other people and the world itself, from your own moral narrative. This is why it is absurd to claim that morality comes from a particular dogma. Your moral narrative is comprised of countless episodes, from the early days when you were scolded for pulling a girl's hair in class and forward to the present. All of these episodes, each interaction with others, adds to your moral narrative in some small or significant way, and hence contributes to your growth as a moral being. We invariably draw upon moral stories, our own and others, to answer what is the right thing to do in the particular case. But morality itself emerges in what we do, and what we do defines who we are as moral beings. So what does morality mean? What does it mean to be a moral being? Well, that's the moral to the story, isn't it?